at where Rey came from, especially with what's known of the production of The Force Awakens and what didn't make it into the movie. During Rey's flashback in TFA, we see Kylo and the Knights of Ren slaughtering clan members. People believe this is them killing Luke's Jedi, but the person we see killed is specifically referred to as the clan leader. It's very, very possible that this was Rey's people being killed by the Knights, and it was a memory from Rey's childhood that was suppressed. Now, with the idea of Rey being part of a clan at some point in your mind, let's move on to something interesting in Empire's End. On Jakku, we know that the Church of the Force, about the Church of the Force, and that Lor San Tekka was part of it. They are the more traditional Force followers, obsessed with the Jedi, but there's another religious group on Jakku in a different part of the planet. Gallus Rax was with these people when he was a child. They believe in the Force and quote the Journal of the Wills and believe in multiple types of Force, including a Grey. We know in canon you can't be a Grey Jedi, as the dark side requires a cost, but it sounds like this could be pointing to a neutral Force user, and the idea of a Force clan on Jakku is very interesting, seeing what we know about Rey and her clan. Could Rey be part of this Force offshoot? Her clan slaughtered, then left with Unkar Plutt as her parents fled Jakku? You know, like I said, it's just speculation, but it's an interesting idea for a backstory for Rey, and much more interesting than linking her to some already existing character. Also, the idea that Rey would be something different than a traditional Jedi in the sequel trilogy would be supported by such a theory. Rebels is already hinting at the idea of neutral Force uses with the Bendu, and Empire's End just did so as well. Yeah, I think there's something to that, and Jeremy's usually pretty spot on. He doesn't go way out on a limb unless he's kind of onto something. That seems plausible. I still think that Disney and Lucasfilm and the story group know that the Star Wars universe is a lot bigger than all of us fanboys and you listening to the podcast, and that they still need to be able to point to the general audience, and the general audience isn't going to really get into all the backstory unless they do a really good job of it, and is going to relate better to Rey being related to somebody we know. All right, so now we have the 10 biggest revelations from Aftermath Empire's End. First off, Gallus Rax isn't Snoke. Perhaps the most disappointing thing about Empire's End is that the whole Gallus Rax thing in Life Debt was a huge red herring for fans. There was a character in Life Debt that a lot of people thought was going to end up to turn out to be Snoke, and his name was Gallus Rax. Okay. The previous book heavily hinted that the new character of Gallus Rax could end up being Supreme Leader Snoke, but that didn't happen in this book. However, there are more hints in the book to his origin. This is what I really begin to dig. I think what they're doing here within the novels is really clever, and I like the idea. Snoke's possible origin. Palpatine has his sights on the unknown region. It is said in the book that he detected something there that only he could, and it was something dark side. So that the area of space became an obsession for him, strongly hinting that this dark side presence he felt out there could be Snoke. Now, the mystery of Jakku was partially solved. Tied with Palpatine's obsession over the unknown regions is the mystery of what he was doing on Jakku. It's not the grave of Pelagus like some people wished, but instead, in the book also, Palpatine visited Jakku. But instead, it was observatories that he set up on Jakku to observe the unknown regions. It sounds like Jakku could have been a staging point for the Empire to set out to that place. There was also the mysterious acolytes of the Beyond that showed up in the first book. And these were essentially individuals that were out searching for artifacts that were related to the Jedi. It's strongly implied in an interlude that the mysterious acolytes of the Beyond became the Knights of Ren in the future. Here it's described how they wear masks of old Sith and are reverential to the power of the masks. And one of the Knights of Ren's masks is actually described in detail in this interlude. So at some point, Kylo takes over this group and becomes their master. Now the other one that I thought was really cool was the redemption of Jar Jar Binks. In the book, a Naboo street performer is making kids laugh in a refugee center, and his name is Jar Jar Binks. Children love him, adults hate him. But the sad clown is burdened with guilt over granting emergency powers to Palpatine years ago. The Galactic Empire is all his fault, but he finds happiness in making children laugh. And I love the fact that they're able to go and do that within the novels. And what a fitting way, if that is the last that we've heard of Jar Jar Binks, for it to be the last that we've heard of Jar Jar Binks. All right, moving on in the 10 biggest revelations from Aftermath. The birth of Ben Solo. We get to see the birth of the future Kylo Ren. Ben Solo was born on the same day that the remains of the Empire signs a treaty with the New Republic. Now, I do have an excerpt from the book that a couple things I want to share with you. This is from Aftermath, Empire's End. You need to go back to J.J. Abrams and his commentary about who Kylo Ren really was. And he was quoted as saying, "It's more than just having a bad seed as a kid. Snoke had targeted this kid and knew that this kid was going to be incredibly powerful in the Force and wanted him as an ally." So, excerpt 1, it says, Luke, she reaches for him but doesn't find him. The dark, now lit with stars, one by one, like eyes opening. Comforting at first, then sinister as she worries, talking about Princess Leia. Who is out there? Who is watching us? Hands reach for her, hands of shadow, lifting her up, reaching for her throat, her wrists, her stomach. Inside, the child kicks. She feels her baby turning inside, right side up and down, struggling to find his bearings, trying so hard to find his way free of her. It's not time, she thinks, just a little longer. So again, what this is referring to is potentially Snoke reaching out and having an effect on Kylo Ren prior to his birth. In excerpt 2, it says, he's less a human-shaped thing and more of a pulsing, living band of light. Light that sometimes dims, that sometimes is thrust with the vein of darkness. She tells herself that that's normal. Luke said to her, Leia, we all have that. He explained that the brighter the light, the darker the shadow. Right now, her son is upset, tumbling inside her as if he can't get comfortable, his light flickering with dark. She centers herself and concentrates. The walls of the room fade away, everything is white, and then it's black. Then she's in the calm, airless void. Leia finds her peace, so does her son. He stops turning. The baby turns inside her again, troubled by something she cannot feel and cannot yet understand. So again, these are all things pointing to Snoke knowing how powerful Kylo Ren was going to be and having an effect on him even before birth. All right, back to the revelations in Aftermath Empire's End. Luke was already missing. Leia mentions that her brother was out searching for ancient Jedi things. This ties into what Luke was doing in the Shattered Empire comic. There was a comic where Luke had to go and retrieve some Force trees. And I won't get into all the details of the Force trees. Be that as it may, it was a pretty cool comic. We do know in some behind-the-scenes photos that there's a gigantic old tree that we think is on Jakku in The Last Jedi. So that might be one of those Force trees. It looks like his quest for the past of the Jedi will last all the way through The Last Jedi, and that is where we last saw him in The Force Awakens. The book also gives you the beginnings of the First Order. At the end of the book, the remaining Imperial military loyalists head into the unknown regions, and Palpatine's Superstar Destroyer, the Eclipse, is mentioned. Now, Hux's father has these very strange Children of the Corn kids that follow his every command that they take with them. So this is the beginning of what will become the First Order. Now, there is another thing about this that I want to mention. Palpatine's Superstar Destroyer, the Eclipse did show up in some expanded universe material. It is essentially a, uber big Superstar Destroyer. But the difference is, and what we're hearing in some leaks, and this is a bit of a spoiler, what we're hearing is there is a gigantic command Star Destroyer for the First Order. Massive in size, and apparently it doesn't have the city on top of it. It's just a gigantic wedge. this would fall in line with the Eclipse. So it looks like we may end up seeing this Super Star Destroyer Eclipse, as mentioned in Aftermath, the one that we saw in the expanded universe, also show up in The Last Jedi. Wedge survives. Prior to the book getting into people's hands, there was a rumor that Wedge would die. He survives and goes on to train pilots. Lumpy is now canon. So for those that have watched the monstrosity that is the Star Wars Holiday Special, you'll know that Chewbacca had a son, and his name was Lumpy. Right? There's an interlude on Kashyyyk with Chewie's son, Waru. Fans will recognize the name Waru as the shorter version of Lumpa Waru, otherwise known as Lumpy, in the Star Wars Holiday Special. So there you go. All right, let's move on to some other items. Now we're going to get into some of the news that we didn't get a chance to cover last week for the remaining portion of the podcast. So we'll back up to one of the first stories that we were going to cover, and that was somebody got the idea, and a horrible idea at that, to create a Star Wars spoof movie. I am not going to repeat the title of this Star Wars spoof movie because it's awful. I'm not talking about something like Spaceballs. I could handle another movie by Mel Brooks in a Spaceballs-style comedy. I'm talking about these stupid epic movie films that come out where they mock the popular movies of the day, whether it was Twilight or 300, these horrible C-level acted, produced films that just are not funny by any stretch of the imagination. This is going to cause the fandom to revolt. No self-respecting Star Wars fan is going to go and see a ridiculous Star Wars spoof movie like that, and they shouldn't even do it because it's an incredibly dumb idea. In the meantime, this is funny. We've been sharing with you the audio of actor Josh Gad, who played Olaf in Frozen, the voice, right? Daisy Ridley, Rey. Did I mention, by the way, Rey is looking into my eyes right now and seeing right into my soul.
There has been an awakening. Have you felt it?
I have. This is because Daisy Ridley is looking at me. Josh Gad and Daisy Ridley are filming a remake of Murder on the Orient Express. And we've played you two different clips on previous podcasts of Josh Gad basically trying to trick Daisy Ridley into giving him answers to The Last Jedi. Well, Josh Gad was at it again. This time, he decided to get some assistance by none other than actress Dame Judi Dench.
Josh, I'm not answering any of your Star Wars questions.
No, Daisy, you're not. You're answering her Star Wars questions.
Are you being tested for midichlorians? Is Snoke Palpatine? Are you the Last Jedi? What's the deal with Reylo? Why don't you answer my damn questions?
Okay.
I liked the other two ones more than that one, but just come on, having Judi Dench say what's the deal with Reylo. For those who don't know, there's a whole group of Star Wars fans out there that have a theory that Rey and Kylo are going to somehow end up together, and so they combine the two into Reylo. I happen to think that that's kind of dumb and it's not going to happen, but you never know. All right, let's move on to some other news, specifically Han Solo spin-off news. All right, we do have a new actress. She is an actress in a show called Fleabag that I've never heard before. But her name is Phoebe Waller-Bridge, and she's being eyed for a CGI-driven role in the Han Solo movie, much like Alan Tudyk did for K2SO in Rogue One. So that's all we know about that at this point. From what I've heard, she's an amazing actress. And she's going to be a CGI character, potentially. This did bring up an idea, though. And I know it's not going to be the case, but I wish Disney would do it. I want to talk about an